What happened in practice
for the Hungarian Grand Prix?
Tommy, I think it's this track. Now that we're back here, now that we've had practice, I feel like it's an underrated one. I feel like this is a track that on paper you go, they'll never overtake ever. But I don't think we've had the worst of races round here when you compare it to some others that have similar levels of hype.
It's basically like people said this before Formula One cars couldn't overtake, that it's essentially a go-kart track for Formula One cars, because it does feel, even back in kind of the 90s, it felt almost too small for Grand Prix cars on very short straights. And it can actually deliver quite a good race. It's very much one of those things where you can either be really frustrated because it is incredibly hard to pass, but then it can also deliver some like really cool moments because it's difficult to pass, like Esteban Ocon winning, basically.
Anyway, let's get into practice. But before we do, we had some news, of course. First of which relates to me personally, obviously, that Fred Vasseur is staying as Ferrari team principal on a multi-year contract. It's suspected maybe 3 years. Not that contracts have a huge amount of weight these days, but it's good to see that Ferrari have committed to it. We've discussed this many times, haven't we, Tommy, about it's not the team principal. Sometimes it is, but it's not in the case of Ferrari in a lot of ways. Like Binotto, for example, I always feel like he was slightly hard done by from where he took Ferrari to where he got to. But the moment that Ferrari then saw the potential of them winning the World Championship and he didn't deliver it, it's like, right, get out, next. Whereas committing with Fred, he gets on very well with the team. You know, Charles loves him, Lewis loves him, and I think that's a really important thing for the drivers and for Ferrari as we move forward, especially into the new regs.
Yeah, definitely. There was talk, wasn't there, of, does Fred need to go? And you're always under a huge amount of pressure, more than any other team principal on the grid when you are Ferrari team principal, because not only does everyone expect it, but also Italy desperately want Ferrari to win. And the media can be very harsh when they do badly, and there's a huge amount of pressure, and a lot of that pressure does fall on the team principal. But look, one Charles Leclerc podium at Spa, and it's like, right, Fred, you've done enough. Sign the dotted line.
He's had like four this year, isn't he? You cheeky. I'll be right back at you.
But I completely agree with you that like it's absolutely the right choice. The problems that Ferrari have not been team principal related.
And furthermore, a bit of news which was unexpected, but then I guess leading into this weekend, expected, like the way in which it's all sort of twisted and turned about Max Verstappen, and is he going to Mercedes, is he going to Red Bull? He's essentially confirmed that he will be with Red Bull next year, and you know that kind of squashes any sabbatical rumours, which I mean neither myself nor you, Tommy, bought for a second. Genuinely, I think Max Verstappen would get a job at McDonald's before he would then take a sabbatical, if we're being completely honest.
I can't believe people think that. That
was
cannot.
The literal lowest possibility of anything happening in my mind. Like he could have genuinely been at Alpine first before he would then have a sabbatical. Like I just could never see him stopping racing, and I'm glad to see that he's confirmed he's at least staying with Red Bull next year. He's staying in the sport for those that believed he might have had a year off. And now that we look back on it, how close was he actually to signing with Mercedes? We'll never know.
Well, yeah, there's loads of talk, isn't there, that maybe the contracts were difficult, and Toto said that he's had to explore it. It's kind of interesting that we've still not heard anything about George Russell, and I know he got kind of picked up on that. That's kind of saying, people going, oh, you must be relieved now that Max is saying you're staying at Red Bull, but then also Toto still hasn't gone. Here's your new contract. But
I
I'm
guess
sure
they
that'll
didn't
get
want
announced.
to do that though from a PR perspective. Like,
True.
Do you really, as Mercedes, want to literally the day after Max saying I'm staying at Red Bull to go?
Because then it looks
okay,
like
George.
it's all about Max. Yeah,
whereas
that's very true.
Leave it across the summer break. They come into the next race. George is signed for an unconfirmed amount of years in case Max Verstappen fancies coming to Mercedes. Let's get into free practice 1 then, when the top 3 were Norris, Piastri and Leclerc. Big news, I guess, coming into free practice 1 was that Alonso was replaced by Drugovich for the first session of the weekend due to a bad back, a muscular injury, according to reports. And Alonso was managing and trying to decide whether or not to go into practice 1 or not? Surprised to have seen him go into FP2? Like, is a few hours? Or is it maybe the fact that he doesn't want to do too much intense running, doesn't want to do too much running ahead of Saturday and Sunday where the competitive sessions are? But either way, they decided that, which was great. I saw the fact that that popped up, and I was like, oh, glad I put him as good surprise then. Because at the time where it said FP1 Alonso sitting out, I was like, is he going to take part in this weekend? Have I jinxed him fully? But good to see that he was back in the car for the second session.
Yeah, definitely. Annoyed that Stroll's got so many points this year. Because there's definitely a great joke in that Alonso had a bad back from carrying the team, but can't even say it because
no, it'll be Lance if
Stroll's
anything,
got the points. Yeah, exactly. Poor old Drugovich though. How many times is the bloke getting like these run-ins and thinking, maybe this is my weekend? This could be it. Because you must, as a driver, hear about the injuries and things from, he's had it before with Stroll's injury or Alonso sitting out this, and your mind must wonder to like, this is the day, this is the weekend. Yeah. Surely I am going to like have my moment, but I it's a shame, isn't it, for him? As much as obviously, I want Alonso to race because we all want to see that.
A question from Googson98. Should Drugovich get a seat over people who already had chances, like Bottas, Perez, Mick Schumacher, Cadillac? It's an interesting thought, isn't it? It depends on what Cadillac want to do with their driver lineup. It really does depend on how they want to set the baseline within that team. Do they go, as it's been discussed and heavily rumoured, of 2 experienced drivers? Do they go for a Perez-Bottas mixture, or do they go for a Mick Schumacher, who's obviously a young talent still? I would pick Drugovich. I'm a Michael Schumacher fanboy, but Mick Schumacher, in my eyes, didn't show the potential that perhaps was spoken about. Him being in the Michael Schumacher bloodline, we didn't see what I had hoped to have seen from Mick Schumacher. So, Formula One is a very, very harsh sport. If you don't deliver, you don't get a seat. Drugovich hasn't had that opportunity, and he has the CV to go with it as well. So should Cadillac decide to pair an experienced with a new talent, then why not Drugovich having a chance?
I'd love to see Drugovich get a chance. I think he's the way that Formula 2 drivers have come in and done so well, and he won that season so dominantly when he won it. He's impressed as well, I think, when he's come in and done these moments. He's not looked far off. Occasionally, he's been best of the rookies, sometimes even beating the other Aston Martin driver occasionally. I know it's practice and there's all sorts of things, but I think he could do a great job, and I definitely would much rather see a new driver give it a go than bring back a Bottas, Perez, Mick Schumacher. The problem is for Cadillac is, no offense to Drugovich, and as we say so many times in Formula One, unfortunately, it's not all about just how well you drive. And for Cadillac, a Bottas, Perez, whatever you think of them, and maybe if they've had their moment, you going into the new or even the name Schumacher, going into we've got this new team and we've got a race winner or 2 race winners or a race winner and a Schumacher. Unfortunately, that is going to do some big heavy lifting, and that might be something that Cadillac want to do.
We shall see. Another driver that got an opportunity was Paul Aron, or not really, actually. He only managed 8 laps in the end, which Jonathan Wheatley, the team principal, apologised on the broadcast to Paul Aron, who was so excited to be jumping in the car. But they both had issues. Both Saubers had an issue that, as of FP1, they were investigating as to what went on there. They obviously managed to get out again for free practice 2, but yeah, it was a strange one for Aron, who literally stopped with 1 corner to go, and that was it. That was the end of his session.
Critical issue
back
as well
to the pits, which is wild.
Yeah, it is, and to have the phrase "critical issue" probably scares you a bit and think, oh no, what has gone on in this car?
But pushed it back though. What I'm saying? If that was my only free practice, what? Come on, here we go.
Definitely.
Indeed, as we head to free practice 2, where the top 3 were Norris, Piastri, and Leclerc. Question from P1 Patreon member Brienne: are the McLarens taking practice a little too literally by practicing their on-track battle before Sunday? I'd love to say yes, but I'm not putting anything into the atmosphere that could affect potential side-by-side battles. I'm going to say it right now. That's the closest they'll get the entire weekend. But that's just Formula One for you in 2025. Let's see. Fingers crossed I'm incorrect on that one. I'll gladly be incorrect on that one. But that was a close little call, wasn't it? I think Lando coming out the pits, giving it some welly, and then testing the brakes into turn one, as drivers do, right? They're practicing everything. They don't just practice the normal straight into turn one. They also need to practice the speed they'll be taking out the pits into turn one. They want to gain every single tenth they possibly can. But Lando nearly gained a little bit too much as he locked up and very narrowly missed Oscar Piastri, which would have made this practice podcast a very different discussion.
It really would. We were 10 centimeters from the McLaren drama that we've been kind of saying that we need to add a bit of spice to the championship. Obviously, you don't wish for it on them, but my word, if it had happened, it would have been a huge story. It was so close. Lando's always going to be pushing out the pit lane. That's normal. Surprised. And obviously we don't have every single radio message. Now they have all this telemetry and stuff saying that, your teammates there, be a little bit more careful or to let him go out the pit lane as that time. Normally the teams control this a little bit more. And you think, seeing their own car coming down the pit straight on the graphic, they might have gone, just be aware your teammate is probably going to be very close to you as you're kind of doing this practice of attacking the pit exit. But yeah, locked up, so very close. I hope you're wrong and this is a case of what's to come, because boy are they rather quick this weekend.
Yes, they certainly are. Free practice one was a scary thought. Charles Leclerc obviously getting close, because why not?
Yeah,
Charles Leclerc is now just the P3 merchant. We absolutely love to see it, although I'd love to see it being a P1 merchant. Speaking of drivers that perhaps haven't been doing so well, Red Bull, Max Verstappen. We spoke about the contract stuff and him securing himself at Red Bull. Well, after the Friday practice of today, perhaps he's wishing he'd even gone to Sauber, because he finished 14th in free practice 2, 1.1 seconds off the pace, and behind Yuki Tsunoda. So is Yuki now the number one driver at Red Bull? That is a question that we will dive into. But a moment I think that it was far stranger than him finishing 14th was his message to you, Tommy, where we quite literally saw him throw in the towel. And I know that you think that Max hasn't given up. He literally threw a towel out of his cockpit and onto the track. So obviously, with Formula One drivers, just with the tear-offs, that they try and throw it as far away from the car as possible, but sadly wind resistance says no, and then it just flies immediately back. And we haven't, as of recording right now, seen what the repercussions are of Max Verstappen literally throwing a towel out of his car. But it was a very strange thing to watch, wasn't it?
It was. I feel like it's a newspaper writer's dream, a scenario like that. You could Dutch media, picture of Max throws in the towel. McLaren are, 1.1 seconds quicker than Max in practice. Is this the end for Max's championship? Perfect, perfect story for newspaper writers. But we have the one that springs to mind is, I think it was Robert Kubica, that someone left a phone in the car in 2010, and he was like, there's a phone in the car. And
he didn't throw the phone out the cockpit, though.
No.
That was the weird part from Max, where it's a literal towel. Surely just keep it next to you.
It's a bit more than a tear-off. You do think it would be a team, like a fine, maybe a reprimand, I don't know.
But this is where, I know they were discussing this on the broadcast, weren't they? Of it's an unsafe release type thing, so perhaps
an unsafe release of a towel.
Yeah, but the problem for me is where it's a step further, in my opinion. I don't think it's grid penalty or anything like that, but where the stewards have to talk about it is that Max actively threw it onto the track.
He had the choice. I guess he had the choice to keep it in the cockpit and go back.
I guess his argument would be, if I kept it in the cockpit, it could slide under my brake pedal or accelerator or something like that, and then it affects me that way. Perhaps that was his way of thinking. But I love how it just sat on the track for the entire session as well. It was just offline, just a towel, just chilling.
Yeah, and maybe that's the argument of maybe that's something else Red Bull argue, that if they didn't even pick it up, it's obviously not that unsafe that a flannel's on the track.
Next question, P1 Patreon member Alan Enderpay. Should we be concerned about Red Bull's lack of pace? When they tend to struggle, I don't think they tend to struggle this much, or at least in the hands of Max Verstappen. They have had Fridays like this. This is a rather large gap to fill. I think this is a Max Verstappen that's going to be happy with a top 5 when we get to tomorrow. I don't see, and I'm more than happy to be proven wrong, a turnaround where Max is challenging for pole tomorrow. He's had lots of poles this year. 4 poles, is it this year?
Yeah. 4. No, yeah, it's 4. Yeah.
I don't see it being 5 tomorrow. As much as I put him in P3 in my predictions, I rapidly want to go back on that and put Charles Leclerc, my boy. But sadly, I'm an idiot. I can't see Red Bull turning this around, and it could well be a difficult weekend for them. They will get better. I don't think he's going to finish 14th, but I think it's far too tall of a hill to climb.
There'll be a lot of people going, oh, remember Silverstone, where Max was saying the car's terrible, and then the day later he stuck it on pole position. This is not that scenario, in my opinion. I didn't think Red Bull would work here. It's not, and it's certainly not a very Max Verstappen-y kind of track. You look at Monaco. It's true much. Though. It's Max absolutely true.
It just rolls off the tongue so gorgeously.
But Red Bull do love this, and Max in particular loves those high-speed circuits. Hungary is not that. It was always going to be a case of like McLaren being clear, and then probably Ferrari, like we saw in Monaco. And that's based on kind of what we've seen from practice. It does look like that. So for me, Max, I'm sure would be more than happy with a 5th place, because 14th, we're not in 2026 yet, because that's very much what I'm expecting in 2026, but not now, please.
Next question, Jonah THFC. Has Adrian Newey finally caved in and helped with the 2025 car? I mean, Aston Martin looked rapid this weekend. And just saying, right, covering this off immediately, if Fernando Alonso finishes 5th and Lance Stroll finishes 4th, I'm still taking the good surprise for Fernando Alonso for scoring points. Don't you dare. Just Lance can also be a good surprising factor here. They can both be good surprises, but I'm just going to cover that off right now. Aston, it kind of goes back to what I say, just because it didn't work in Spa, which was such a treacherous weekend anyway with the conditions and whatnot. Hungary is a completely different track, and they've been able to dial in this car from free practice 1 into free practice 2, and because it's not like they were crazy quick in FP1. Lance was 10th and obviously had Felipe in the car, and he was 16th. They've been able to clearly do a lot of learnings for this weekend, and 4th and 5th in free practice 2 is that's pretty mad.
I'm going to be really hypocritical now, and after I basically said Max is 14th, it's so over. We've seen this many times before with midfield cars in free practice sessions, popping in a great practice result. And when that midfield is so incredibly tight and everyone's running different fuel plans and things, I do think Aston Martin look good. And in a weird way, the fact that they were so bad in Spa maybe suggests that they should be good around here, because, like you say, it's a completely different track. But I wouldn't start kind of leaping for joy that Aston Martin are so back and Adrian Newey's cooked, because we just don't know until we get into.
Is cooked. Two very different phrases.
Has cooked.
Has cooked. Okay.
But I just think that maybe Aston are more suited here, but I'd be amazed if they were 4th and 5th in qualifying.
And that is it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this Friday wrap-up for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Enjoy every second of the cars being on track, because they'll be gone for 3 weeks after this. So I look forward to the competitive sessions, where, of course, we'll be live on Twitch and YouTube. Come and join us there. Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
I think you hit the nail on the head there of soak it all up and enjoy it. I think it's going to be a banging qualifying session tomorrow, and then equally don't complain on lap 4 when there's a DRS train from 3rd to 20th, because you got to remember that there's going to be no F1 for 3 weeks after.
We just got to enjoy it. It doesn't matter what they do. It's free practice 4. It does not matter. We have to enjoy it all the same. Yeah. Right, thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.